All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the live stream of the paint along. I hope you guys can hear me. I think I got everything set up. And there we go. There we go. All right. Can everybody hear me? I hope so. So I've got a new camera set up, so hopefully it's going to be a lot more clearer and more out of focus like I did on my other live streams. So feel free to comment. We'll keep some conversations going, and we'll get started with this painting. So we've got an awesome project, and we've got this Frankenstein pumpkin. And this thing is kind of creepy and awesome. So one of the people in my community, Denny, actually suggested this, and I think he's along as well. And we're going to be just kind of go through this. Now, if you have painted or printed this model, like you saw, I actually posted the model a while ago, and you printed the whole thing like this. I think in every version the bolts come out. That's fine. But what I actually printed, and I said in the notes, I printed it with everything like disassembled. So I've got all of these pieces in part. So like the stem and everything, and it's just going to make us be able to complete a lot faster. And since we're going to try to do this whole thing in this live stream with the paint along, I figured it's going to be a lot easier, and instead of actually kind of going around and masking things off. So, but if you did, it's not a big deal, but you can kind of see the process. They're pretty much going to be the same, so it's going to be a lot easier. And Dennis is stuck at work. I know he was wanting to paint along. Hopefully you can get out of work. I haven't printed it yet, but can't wait to watch. All right, awesome. So if you have any questions at all along the way, you just let me know and we'll answer them. Now, I have already primed this black. Even though it was printed in black filament, like I even got another one here. I printed a bunch of them. So like you can see how shiny this is because it's the same filament. And I printed this in just a LA black. And I was going to go over those settings with you before we even get into it. So I have got my little 3D printing and painting logbook that I make, and I can put a link to my store if you're interested in this. But it's just one of those things that helps me because you can get all of your settings of your print, and then we can log all of the colors we're going to be using. Because I like to do this when I go back to another project. I want to like paint another one of these later, then I can know all of the different colors that I use. I'm going to fill this out as we go. But the big thing here is I printed this on my P1S bamboo printer, and that doesn't mean you gotta have a bamboo. Like I printed this one on my Ender 3 Pro, and they both turned out beautiful. And it's a really nice port-free file, and I used a 0.08 layer height to actually print this. So that is at the highest quality settings. When you're painting like models that you actually want to put up on a shelf, it's always a good thing to print at a really low layer height. That way you don't see as many layer lines, because when you really get in there, it's really hard to see these layer lines after we've actually painted it. So I put a good coat of primer, of just black primer on this, and those layer lines are going to go away. Now at the very top, you still see a little bit, but it's really not that bad. So I've done that, and then like the other thing, this has got a 10% density infill on it, and that's it. I just used the basic setting, and like I said, this is PLA, and the filament, if you're interested, I used King Rune filament, and that was actually suggested to me by Denny as well. He told me I should give it a shot, and it was pretty affordable. Like I think it's like $110 for 10 spools on Amazon, at least when I got it last. And that's like $11 a spool. Like for as much I actually went like trying to find something that's cheaper, but it's really nice. So here we go. So what we're going to do with this pumpkin is we are going to start with our base coating. And since I've already got my black foundation, I'm thinking I've got a few ideas along the way with this. And we'll see. I might completely screw this up, but that's all about learning different things. Because I'm going to be experimenting with a few different ideas I had and kind of combining some techniques. So it might look awesome and it might not look awesome, but that's part of the learning experience. And I'm not ashamed to show you if I mess something up, because we all make mistakes no matter how long we've been doing this. So what I'm going to do first is we're going to do some base coating with some browns. I've got, it's this one. So I've got this nutmeg brown, and then I've got this burnt umber brown. And I'm just going to be using these regular hobby acrylics for almost all of them. I might switch over and use some of my Vallejo game colors, but if you don't have these exact paints, don't worry about it. There's no reason to stress over this, because it's your art. You can do whatever you want. And I'm just trying to give you some ideas. So I also have all of my pieces right here. I haven't primed all of the pieces because I just told my music to go on. Hold on 1 second. There we go. I'll just turn off the music. Good. There it goes. Okay. Sorry. I was told my music was way too loud. So basically, I've got all of my pieces, and the one thing, if you print these off in separate pieces, you're going to have to sand some of this, because we knew such a tight fit, I couldn't get it in there. So I would recommend sanding off some of the corners. I just took my Dremel and sanded it off a bit. Yeah, I've used your settings. Here we go. I've used your settings for my printers, but tweaked it a little for me. Yeah, that's exactly what you need to do. And that's what I've shown in so many of my tutorials is even though you might even have the same 3D printer, your printer is going to be a little bit different. Sometimes you can do some subtle adjustments, and that's awesome. And this is actually all in PLA. I just printed this on my FD printer. So it's on my Bamboo P1S that I printed this on. And this one I printed on my Ender 3 Pro, because I just printed a couple of them to see which one I like more. Because I figured I don't want to paint around all of this. That's why I did the version that's got all of the pieces and parts separate. So I've got all my pieces here, and we're just going to put it in here so I don't lose them, because some of these are quite small. And here we go, and let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is start with my undercoat, and this is a burnt umber. It's a dark brown. So one of my friends, Mr. Pigment, he is a master of pigments and paints and everything like that. And I think it was him that told me that there's really no such thing as brown. It's just dark orange. And so what we're going to do, we are going to make this pumpkin orange. So we're going to start with our base of a dark brown, or actually a dark orange. Now, I'm going to be using for these little spouncers. And if you're not familiar with what a spouncer is, it's a sponge on a stick. That's really it. Now, I like to use these when I'm doing some stippling technique or just trying to get coverage really well. And these will do the trick. And what we're going to do is I'm going to get some of this, and we're just going to get started. Now, the key here, let me shake the paint off. I am not going to thin my paint in any way. I'm just going to put it on my texture board right there. So if you have if you don't have a dark brown, just a regular brown, you can just add a little bit of black to it, and it'll darken it up for you. So I know I've run into people that's just I don't have those colors, and it's well, as long as you got the basics, you can mix them up and get the colors you're wanting. So all I'm going to do right here is I'm just getting the paint on right there, getting a nice little coat, but I'm not oversaturating it. just enough to get on the sponge. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get in all of these recesses and stuff because I want the cracks to be brown and then the top is gonna be, so we're gonna kind of build up layers here. So I'm just gonna go in here and start on it. And if I leave black, I'm not terribly concerned just because it'll give it some nice definition to it. But what I'm doing right now is just using it as a paintbrush, essentially. And I also think I'm gonna leave the nostrils right here. I wanna leave those black. I think that'd be kinda cool. And we're just gonna go through here. And I'm trying to give it a nice thin coat. And some of these cracks, and this is why I like using spackle, because if you see these cracks right here, like, they're still black, and that's what I really like about sponsors. They don't get in the cracks real easy unless you push real hard. Now, some of these areas I want to get in those cracks, so I'm just kinda gonna twist and get it in there, and I might even switch over to a brush to get them in there as well, but I wanna get this brown all over. And if you guys have any questions along the way, please ask, or if you just wanna chat about something, I am a captive audience for you right now. So we're just gonna get it in there. I wanna get it in those cracks. And I like spouncers just also because you can apply a lot of paint really quickly, and the other thing is it doesn't leave, like, big paint globs or anything like that. Like, you just can just wipe it, and it'll give you kind of a nice, smooth, even surface. I like to use spouncers sometimes for the first coat, and the cracks is really my main concern here. Alright. And can you guys hear me okay? Just making sure. Got this new setup and just testing it out for the first time. Alright. And you can see, like, some of this is already drying, and that's why, like, to just get a quick bit on, like, we're just trying to get a nice brown base coat and these cracks. Hey, Mr. Pigment. Speak of nice to have you here. I was pretty sure you were the one that told me that there's no such thing as, brown, it's just dark orange. Wasn't it you that told me that? Alright. Alright, and this alright, I'm gonna keep with this in these little cracks right here. And I think one other thing that is just, I think, good to mention is when you're painting projects, especially, like, while you're, like, transitioning into, like, different stages of your project, it might look terrible. Like, I know there's some times where I'm doing projects and I just look at it and I was like, "This is gonna be," but it's one of those things that you kinda gotta just keep sticking with it because, like, especially for what I'm planning on doing with this thing tonight, like, it's gonna be in kind of phases. Like, we're gonna really start to see this thing come to life after every single stage. But so I got all the main areas so far. Now I think I can switch to a bigger spouncer. That way we can lay down more paint. There we go. And this is definitely the most boring part here. Just covering the whole thing. Let's get some more of this. There we go. And I'm about to get paint all over me, but that's all right. Just trying to, I'm like rolling it in these cracks. That's all I'm doing. Because it doesn't have to be a perfect coat for this mixture. I just want a brown tone. And if some of that black shows through, great. If some of the brown shows through, great. Like, I'm not picky when it comes to this. Just because I know we've got a lot of other layers to get on this guy. And since we've got the pumpkin part, we're going to focus on all of that first. And work our way to the other pieces. Oh, you did the Hulk bust follow along. That's an old one. That was one of my very first like series that I did. How did your Hulk turn out? All right. Good portion of this is already drying that we started. All right. I think we're almost there because I've got some black showing through. Oh, that's awesome. I know a lot of people have done that. You like walk through that series. So that was a long time ago for me. But still a lot of that information is good. All right. Here we go. Just a little bit more, and I think I'm done with this, and then we'll dry it. So before I even start the drying process, I will explain that for you. So I've got this little hair dryer, and the cool thing about this hair dryer is I don't use it a lot, but for something like this, we're going to be able to move forward a lot quicker. And so So basically, you don't want to use any like hot air. Like this hair dryer I have, it actually has different toggles to where it'll just blow. So it's basically like a direct fan, and that will help quickly cool it and or dry the paint. I mean, and you can also on this one specifically, it like will toggle back and forth between heat and cool. So it's just kind of warmish here and I use that sometimes, but not a lot, just because this is PLA, and you gotta be careful. And it also something I learned from Mr. Pigment is it affects your paint, of the surface of the paint. So you can actually get a little bit of a different texture. You won't get as smooth if you actually apply heat to the paint. And so I'm gonna go ahead and I've got just it's almost dry. I'm gonna blow this for a second. I'm gonna mute this so you don't have to hear this fan. All right, there we go. So It's still got a little bit of a wet areas, but that's going to be just fine. And now the one thing I want to do before I move away from this color is I want to just keep track of what I'm actually using. Little paint log. Um, so that Hulk series is what got me into painting. That's awesome. I'm glad. Painting's so much fun. I just want everybody to be able to paint their 3D prints. Uh, awesome. Oh, you actually sent me pictures. I think I remember that. In the middle of the Raphael bust right now at the moment. Oh, the Raphael bust. Man, that was like one of my first big busts that I painted. I love that one. It's from okay, so now what we're going to do is I'm going to move on to the next one. So I think what I want to do is really lightly, and this is just going to give us a little bit of variety here instead of it's just kind of being a solid like dark brown tone. Because right now you can see it's just now it looks like dark brown. So here, let's compare it. This is the black one. This is the brown one. So like this was just PLA, but we can see now we've got a nice tone and of this dark. Actually, there's a little bit I missed. Look at that. That's what happens when I rush. This is gonna be, I'm gonna try to finish this entire thing on this live. If not, we can do another live, like, in a day or so. Okay, there we go. Let me blow on that one. We'll get that dry. I'm gonna mute us again. Okay, that's good enough. Alright, so now I'm going to add this nutmeg, and this is like a lighter brown, and let me see. Oh, I'll be around but lurking. Wonderful, Mr. Pigment. Okay, so this is a lighter brown, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the same spouncer. I don't care that this has got a dark brown on it because even being able to mix some of these paints together is not a bad thing. So this will help with our variety here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to tap this and get rid of some of the paint. So there we go. Yeah, I don't want to leave a ton of it. Now I'm just going to selectively start like kind of adding this brown in different areas. And I'm really focusing on the cracks because the high points are not going to have any brown when we're done. So I'm just going to kind of get in there in a few spots to be able to have some, different options of brown. Because once we really get into this with the orange, the brown is subtly going to start disappearing. But I wanna be able to have some of those varieties, and I'll just kinda roll it around here. And you can see I'm being just random with it, and you can do that too. Like, when you're dealing with base coats, I personally like to not just, like, do one specific color, like, when I'm doing, like, different things. Like, that little variety can kind of, like, show when you're done with the final result. It just gives it a little more. Now, I don't always do that, but sometimes, especially when I'm dealing with different colored base coats. So, like, this is obviously not black, so having different browns on here is really gonna help, I think. Maybe not, I don't know. We'll see once we get to it, because this is a little bit lighter. So now, if I get in here, now they're not mixing as much, and I'm probably gonna have to just wipe off some of this. There we go. We'll just add in this brown in different spots. And I'm just kind of like feathering it out with the spouncer. So just kind of, I'm pressing hard in the middle. And then what I'm doing is I'm kind of like lightly going away from it. That way we've got some different areas of that light brown. Here, I can even zoom in for you guys to see. There we go. So we can see It's really random. And remember too, like I said, like it might look not that great, like when you're like, in the middle of your process. But the nice thing is like things darken typically when you are drying. So when this dries, it's not going to be as bright and like vibrant. It's still going to be brighter than the dark brown we put on. Sarah, do the sponge brushes better than the makeup brushes for that? So okay, that's a good question. All right. So here we go. Let me get this. So makeup brushes, I've got right here, and also like a dry brush. Because when it comes to doing dry brush technique, you can use a dry brush or a makeup brush. And when it comes to stippling, because that's essentially what I'm doing right now, is I'm stippling this. The first layer, I actually was just kind of using it to paint it on because it will go on really quick and it gives a nice thin coat. But when it comes to like your makeup brushes, you can absolutely use these. Like there is no problem with that. Like because I could have used this brush to get my first coat and just get it everywhere, and then switch to like a smaller like brush. Like yeah, I could have used this for what I'm doing right now because it's the same. So that really doesn't matter. You can do that. But I like the spouncers and you can wash these, but they're really not expensive. Like I've got a box of these things. Like I get them from Amazon and like you can find these like at craft stores and they're usually come in like bags and things. They're really affordable. Like they're kind of I use them more of a disposable thing, but you can wash them if you're like trying to save them. But when it comes to transitions, like I just did between these two colors, like it works out pretty well. So I hope that because you can use whatever you want, honestly. Like I could have used just a regular paintbrush for this if I wanted to. It would have just taken a lot more work because I would have had to keep going back and forth, and it just doesn't cover as much as using, let's say, a bouncer or a makeup brush. Michael, like love the YouTube channel. I'm glad. I'm glad you've learned stuff. I'm like, that's all what I'm about, man. I really love sharing. I know it. I'll share it. So if you have any questions, you let me know. So all right. So I'm going to use this hair dryer again to just kind of dry some of these areas that are still wet, and then we're going to move on to the orange. So I'm going to mute this. So you don't have to hear me. All right. So we've got our base coat done, and you can kind of see like there's still a little wet, but we're fine. You can see here all of these different kind of variations of brown. I think it's going to be fun. We'll see. So now the next thing I'm going to do is we're going to get into our oranges. And kind of looking through what I think I want to do is I've got this pumpkin orange and I'm trying to see if I get a darker orange. I think this is good. So this is just straight pumpkin orange, ironically, or a pumpkin. And what I'm going to do is I think what I'm going to try is we'll see how well this mixes. I am going to mix these two together with my spouncer. And let's see. So all I'm doing is kind of tapping and twisting because I kind of want something in between this because it's all about our layering. And it's going to look like a muddy orange, and that's exactly what we're going for. There we go. We'll try it. I ain't scared. Okay. So the one thing I have said so many times when you're painting things and testing things, when you're painting and you're trying something new, always try it on the back because it might look terrible, and then I've just messed this whole area up. So we're gonna test this on the back and see how it and yeah, kinda like that. Yeah. So we're gonna go with this. So now what I'm doing is I'm not going to be applying this as hard as I was everything else because I want some of this gradation on these cracks to be able to see some of that. Because this is gonna be more of a gritty looking pumpkin, I think. This is kinda what I'm wanting to go for. So, like, the cracks, not a big deal, but I'm trying to avoid the cracks now. So you can see how it's looking like that. So we're just gonna keep doing this with the Spencer. It's been printing for a while and just upgraded from a KE to a P1S and just started. A KE, are you talking about an Ender, like an Ender 3? It's a good printer. Bamboo is a really good printer. That's what I printed this one on is my P1S, like this pumpkin right here. This I actually printed on my Ender 3 Pro, and it turned out really good too. There was a little bit of layer issues right here, but I honestly think it was the filament I was using, not the printer. Trying to get all the details. Night. Really trying to learn how to get the nice details that you were always doing. Oh, for painting? And I tell you what, like, if you're talking about painting the details, it's really about just kinda, like, inspecting your model, like, seeing what you can do. I do a lot of planning of my paint jobs before I even start. Like, this one specifically, I kinda looked at it a bit, and I was just like, I kinda wanna do some different stuff with it." Because I don't paint a ton, like, with my sponsors, and I was wanting to do at least, like, this initial base coat with it, then we're gonna do some, like, dry brushing and stuff, but I kinda like the grittiness, so and it's, like, big thing is, like, honestly, it's just testing. Like, I'm because this is what I'm doing right now, like, I'm live and I'm testing stuff out, like, just the big thing is if you ever screw stuff up, just learn from it. Like, that's what I do. I just test so many different things, and I'm not afraid to screw it up because we're not perfect. Like, nobody's perfect. It doesn't matter how long you've been doing it. I know some people don't show their mistakes, but I am far from perfect. I just like to paint and show technique. Alright, and we're gonna need more of this paint. So it's starting to look kinda cool. Just because of how creepy this thing looks, I kinda wanna make it like a rough looking paint job, like a creepy looking thing. So we'll see. I think once we get, like, the details on this thing, it's gonna really start to shine. And if you guys have any questions or anything, honestly, you wanna talk about, bring it up. We can talk. Appreciate all you coming to be a part of the live. And I'm just trying to get everywhere right now, just kinda even this out. There we go. So that's what I really like about sponsors. Like, that black is staying there. Like, it's getting in some of the cracks, like, as you see, like, I've got a little too much paint on it, but, like, you can keep tamping it like that, like, tapping it, and it will suck away some of the paint, like the excess paint, which is one of the great things about using sponges. And like, if you don't have spouncers, you can literally, I've done this with like a kitchen sponge, like getting a pack at like at the grocery store. And I found if you tear them instead of cut them, it gives you some cool effects, like textured effects. But you can also just cut them and it'll be a flat surface like this. So you can use just about anything to help paint, like when it comes to tools. So I'm just going to do an even amount of both. This time, I think I'm going to use my little metal stir stick because it's kind of flat and it's easy to stir. I'll try to get that same tone we got because it was pretty even. And even if I don't get it exactly, we can just kind of fade it throughout the model. There we go. And I love metal stir sticks. So like this is actually like I think it's like a mixing like stir stick for like drinks, but it's got this nice little paddle on it to where like for mixing just like we did right here, like it works out so beautifully. So even when I'm dealing with my mixing cups stirring, it does a really good job as well. And then you can wipe it and reuse it. Like, I used to use coffee stir sticks, uh, and I found like and it was a big waste. So like switching to something to where you're not wasting as much. And that's also stuff you're having to keep buying. Yeah, we got that pretty close. Yeah, that versus that, I would say we're close. And that's the thing when you're mixing paints, just kind of keep an eye on like how much you're mixing. That way, if you have to make more, because usually when you're mixing paints, it almost always happens. You're running out and you've got to get more. Is anybody else actually printing for Halloween? Like any cool projects or even some Halloween costumes? No, I've been on costume mode right now. I'm hoping to come out with a video in the next week or so. Maybe it's going to be closer to Halloween, but my costume for this year, because last year I was Shredder and it was awesome. I'm obsessed with Ninja Turtles, so being able to be Shredder was like 10-year-old me was geeking out. Okay. Do you always fully sand your prints before painting, or really just have the heavier layer? Okay, so when it comes to sanding, usually I've always looked first on the very top crack where you get a lot of that plateauing. So here, I'll show you. So if we look here, if you can kind of see some of this plateauing right here, it's kind of hard to see because this is a really low layer height. But some of this plateauing right here, usually these are the first things I sand. But this one, like I'm to this at 0.08 millimeter layer height, like both of these. So this is like super fine. This is as fine as you typically get when it comes to your like FDM 3D printing. And I will sand that, and it also depends on what, like, your surface is, because if you really look at this, like, after I start painting, you can't see any layer lines. Like, I'm hoping that that's coming through. But, I mean, if you have a really good print, like, you're not gonna have to do a lot of sanding, and when it comes to sanding, getting in some of these little tiny areas, I mean, I probably would lose my mind. But it is possible, and I usually let me see, like, I've got these, they're called, sanding sticks, and I get them on Amazon, and these I'll use, and I will, like, get in there and sand, like, the little cracks and stuff like that. If I see layer lines, like, maybe if the top of the nose or something like that was bad, but this actually turned out really nice, like, even on the top of the lip, like, you can't even really see those layer lines. like the plateauing just because of the quality of the print. But you can get different packs of this is an 80 grit, and I think they come in 4 different sets of grits. So, like, I would do an 80 grit, and then I would move up to, like, a 120, and then a 220, and then, like, a 300 just to be able to smooth it out. So, I don't always do sanding. Like, sometimes, like, for this, I didn't do any sanding except these little pieces, because some of these pieces didn't fit really good, like, it was too tight. So, like, the modeler probably just took them apart and didn't actually print it and test it to make sure. So, like, I had to, like, especially, like, the teeth, I had to grind them down on the corners, so when I actually put it in there, it's going to fit properly. Um, and that's one thing you always wanna do if you have multiple pieces that you're 3D printing, you wanna test fit before you even put any paint to it, because if I would've primed all of these little pieces, then it didn't fit, then I'm sanding all of that paint off too, and it's not worth it. So, always test fit, but if you're making a showpiece and you want this to look amazing, then you can sand all the areas you can. You can also just use a spray filler primer, and that sometimes can get rid of a lot of the cracks too. So I hope that has answered your question. Um, so we've got so here we go. I started printing March 18th this year. My first printer is an Ender 3 Max Neo. That's a good printer. Using videos actually 2 complete printers. Oh, wow. An Ender 3 V2 and your version of an Ender 3 V2 Max. Oh, wow. That's really cool. I've never made anything like that. Uh, so when the pumpkins crisp, yeah, these were just clean prints. But the P1, like all the bamboo printers, I found if you put them on the quality settings instead of just the fast settings, and then sometimes I'll go in and slow down the outer walls a little bit, and then you'll get like an even better finish because it's really the outer walls is your concern. Like the inside, like if you have your infill like going super fast, this doesn't matter. But the outside is really where it matters. Um, and we got Sarah. I just started 3D printing and painting. I sold my first artwork on Etsy yesterday. Oh, congratulations! Your videos taught me how to really paint and dry brush and make it all come together. Oh, wow, that's so cool. I love it to hear when people are, like, actually turning this hobby into, like, something that's making money because, there's there's a guy, Mark, he is in the community, and he does beautiful works of art. Like, actually, if you look in my background on the left, you'll see a Bebop, a Ninja Turtle, character. He painted it for me, and I've got it in my background on my set because it's so cool, and he sells them too. Well, I wish you nothing but luck. Like, that's so cool. That is awesome. So what kind of stuff do you actually print, like, or paint? Like, is it a specific genre, or is it just whatever people are wanting? I used to do commission works, but I focus more on YouTube now. Like, I like making videos. I can't I figured I couldn't do both. Alright. This guy is starting to really come together, and we can see how this orange is starting to, like, slowly come out. This is why I love just kind of building up in layers because you can really get some cool stuff when you do that. Oh, and Michael Barrett. Yeah, okay, great. I'm glad that helped you with the explanation of the sanding. All right. So now I'm starting to see that this big spouncer is not getting in some of those smaller cracks that I need around here. So what I'm going to have to do is switch to the smaller one. Now, also, if you started to notice, I'm going back over certain areas, like high raised areas, because, like, obviously in the middle of a pumpkin, we're truly, like, used to, like, it's bright in the middle and it gets into that crack. So that is what I'm trying to do right here, is just try to, like, build up, because once we get to that brighter orange, like, it's gonna really pop and we're gonna see some cool transitions, and we'll just keep going in some of these areas. So says, "I've made some busts of people and bands and some Day of the Dead, Dead Dead by Daylight stuff." Okay, I don't know what that is. I assume that's a band. Pokemon, I definitely know what that is. The Dry Brush is really amazing. That's awesome. Yeah, Dry Brush will, like, take your stuff to the next level, and we're gonna be doing some Dry Brush on this pumpkin too, for sure, because it does. It just, like, it accentuates so much stuff, and, like, especially when you have, like, some really cool fine details, it is the best way. Because I'm very jealous of, like, people that paint minis and stuff because they have some other techniques that can get really cool gradients, like, you can do wet blending and stuff, but, like, wet blending is another technique where, like, you keep your paint wet and then you kind of blend the 2 colors together. But when it comes to really big surfaces, it's nearly impossible because, like, when you've got, like, minis, you're dealing with a surface that's, like, this big, and blending is so much easier. When you're dealing with stuff this size, you kinda gotta look in broad brush strokes, and I think that pun was what intended to. Alright, so we're getting in here. I think we're almost done with this color, and then we're gonna start seeing more color pop up. Oh, wow! Thanks so much for the super thanks. Hedgehog legs. I love the name. Oh, hedgehog, that's awesome. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Super helpful, especially with supplies and filament. Okay, so I think we're done with this bouncer, and let's move to the smaller one, but I wanna get this paint in there, and then let's try to get in some of these cracks. And I don't wanna get too much in there because I kinda like the darkness of it, but I'm just trying to get some. So I'm trying to get off as much as I can for some of this. I'm just trying to blend it in there. There we go. So we got some of that. Some of these smaller cracks, it's harder to get in. That's why we gotta switch bouncers. And then we're gonna switch to another one, bigger one, and then we'll start with our brush work. Um, I talk about painting and or printing and painting. Now my wife walks away from me now. Oh, I know the feeling. My wife hears me talk about 3D printing all kinds of stuff, all she's a saint for putting up with me sometimes and how much I talk about it. Uh, and I've printed a bunch of stuff, from all of my favorite video games and want to finish them all for display. Oh, yeah, like, I've got so many things, like, my problem is, and I don't know if you guys have the same problem, but I've heard everybody that it's a I think it's a global thing when it comes to 3D printing. You print way more than you can actually paint. Like, I've got shelves of just stuff that I wanna paint, but then I find another model and I'm like, "Ooh, I wanna print that and I wanna paint that." Like, my paint log is so big. I just want to I wish I could just sit in my studio and paint all day, every day. And So there we go. So if you see here, we've got highlighted orange, and you see how some of this orange is a little brighter in some areas, and, in other areas it's just a little bit darker. And also, I'm trying to blend some of this as well, like into the darker areas, so it's just not too harsh. There we go. Uh, hit the like button. He knows his stuff. Well, thank you. Yeah, got another one. Yeah, just about to say that. Yeah. Too many prints, not enough time. I tell you what, I hear it from just about anybody that actually paints their prints. Like, you just there's so many things you always wanna print. Like, because I was actually looking to see if, like, there's any models I could, just paint for this, but this live stream, but I was like, "Ah," that's why I was asking in my, private Discord, and that's when Denny actually suggested this one. So I decided to go with it. All right, so here, I'm gonna hit mute for just a second because I wanna hit this with a hair dryer before we go to the next spot. Here we go. Mute. All right. So now let's go to the next. Oh, I always forget this, and I always later using. See, I just use my finger just because I've got it, and then we've got this, which is a mixture, and I'll write this down later. I don't know if you guys are the same way, but like I don't think I've had a successful paint job until like I'm covered in paint, and it. I'm pretty sure parts of my blood is paint now, just because of how much is always on it on my skin. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is I'm gonna add a little more of this orange, and this was just in case you missed it. This is pumpkin orange. This is it's just funny. Like I was looking for an orange and I didn't know the name of this, and it's ironically the pumpkin orange. All right, so now what we're gonna do is, well, I want to put this in my logbook. There we go, and that wipe that off. Okay, so here we go. We can see the stages of it kind of starting to come to life, and we've got 3 different, or actually 4 if you count the black, different tones on this already. So, like, looking at it up close, it just kinda looks like junky. You're like, "Ugh," but when you look at it from afar, that's when you start to see those blends, and that's why I was using a spouncer because I was kinda wanting to have some of these rough blends on this. Now what I'm gonna do is I am going to do the same thing we just did, but I'm lessening it because I also kinda wanna show you, like, you don't have to have, like, hundreds and hundreds of paint. Like, I've got a ton of paints, like, I could be using a bunch of different ones, but I was gonna kinda challenge myself for this live stream to show, like, we don't have to use, like, every paint under the sun. We keep switching, we can just keep modifying paints, because that's honestly the when it gets kind of fun and you get some really unique stuff. So when it was using this paint, this orange that we just put, it was a 50-50 mix. So now this is like a 25-75 mix. And I'm going to go ahead and mix this together now and try to get an even lighter orange. And I might even find it's not bright enough. And I don't think it's bright enough. I want it a little bit brighter. I think we might. Let's fully mix it first. Yeah, I'm going to put a little bit more. So now it's probably about 15% brown. Like it's not a lot. There we go. Nice. So this is what we're gonna do. Uh, this is where it gets kind of fun to see different things. I'm going to be using, so we had a small, we had a large, and or a small, a medium, and now I'm going to use a large. Now, why we use different sizes? Because the bigger the spout, the harder it is to get into cracks. Because I don't really want to mess with inside these cracks now. I just want to mess with the surfaces. And that's what we're going to do is I'm just going to start touching the surfaces. Then we're going to go in after that and I want to do some dry brushing to just try to like fade some of this a little better with this same paint because I'm not going to use a ton of it. So all I'm going to do is first I want to get my paint on here and I'll even use this to wipe off some of it. There we go. And clean this. Keep my paper towel over here. All right. Tanya, I've been asking the wife to get the airbrush PSI rangefinder as a present for about a month now. Well, yeah, the PSI rangefinder, like a lot of people are liking it. Like it's for you guys that's not familiar with it, like this took me forever to figure out how to get it because everybody's always saying you're going to mix when you're airbrushing, you get your paint to the consistency of like skim milk. And that always frustrated me to death because like what is that consistency? And when it comes to airbrushing, when you're thinning your paints, especially when you're using this kind of paint, like because I airbrush with these paints just as much as I airbrush with like my airbrush paints. And essentially what I did is I figured out how to get the right viscosity. So you mix your paints, you put it like 3 drops or 2 drops, depending on your nozzle size. Then you hold it vertically and then it'll drip. And wherever it stops, it tells you what your PSI needs to be at. And generally speaking, it works because this is just kind of a range finder. It'll help you find that range of where your PSI should be. So if you airbrush and you're interested, it's in my store, and it's been really helpful to a lot of people. Uh, so Daniel, what do you got? Chris is an airbrushing class that it comes with. Actually, it only came with my PSI rangefinder when you like for the first month. So if you got in on that, it, that's when it was a part of it. But I actually took it off because like some people didn't even care that I was sending it to them. They were shocked. But now it's just separately. But yeah, are you in the class, Daniel? Like, there's a few people. It's hard for me to remember everybody's name. But yeah, I've got a airbrush class as well. That's pretty helpful for people. It's like a 4 or 5 hour class, I think. So, and I could put links to that. All right. So what we're gonna do is now I'm gonna go in with this bright orange, and I'm just kind of lightly tapping around everywhere to kind of get this. And I'm not focusing on some of these cracks. So you can see we're just kind of brightening this up now. This is the make or break section. We'll see how this goes. And when it comes to like how like the paint that I'm like the technique that I'm really using, I know sometimes like I'll look at an angle and I'll be like, okay, I want all the paint to be on this side because I want the light coming from here. But when it comes to this guy, I've decided just because like it's kind of dark and spooky, I'm just kind of doing a general paint. Like I'm not really focusing like a lot in one specific area. I'm just doing a very even coat on him. But if you're like painting this or anything else for that matter, like it's a cool effect when you're like looking for one area. So what I like to do is like say if I really just wanted to have the light source from here, I would just paint it and only look at it from this angle. And if I can't reach it from like past this, like I won't be painting this color on this side. So on this side right here, like I would be only looking at it from this side right here. And that's an easier way. Some people will even like hit their model with a light and then like see where the shadows are and then like take just a light colored like a mechanical pencil and draw a line. I've seen people do that, and I think that's a really cool idea. I've personally never done it. If I wanted to do something like that, I typically just airbrush it and do like just a kind of a directional spray so I can really see where like that light should be coming from with like a different colored paint. And there we go. He's really starting to come together. We can see how that's looking now. Oh, so Daniel, you are in it. Yeah. So if you get a chance, the class is really good for a beginner. Yep, that's what I focused it for. I'm glad to hear that. I haven't gotten a ton of feedback on it besides some of the beta testers. A couple of people have, but really glad to hear that. Great. I'm really glad to hear that. Love to see some finished work because you can go in there and post some of it. So Michael would really love to get good at cell shading. The Mario you did was so freaking cool. Yeah, that Mario was a lot of fun. And it was so sad because like when I'm doing a lot of my stuff, I try to make it like models that people can access and get it's easy to get to. But like apparently the artist took it down and some people have been having a hard time trying to find it. I think somebody did find it on Cults. I think I posted that, but I don't know if it's still up. But yeah, that Mario was really fun to do. I've been thinking about doing uh, I saw this model of me being a Ninja Turtle freak. It's the original Ninja Turtle, like, illustration where he looks like a turtle, like, the nunchucks are, like, taped to his wrists. So it literally looks like a turtle, and I've been really wanting to do that in cell shading, but, like, make it more look inked, and it's been on my bucket list. I think that'll be the next one that I do a cell shading project on, because then I can use a lot more paint markers and stuff. But yeah, cell shading can be a little tricky. I'm not gonna lie. That one's I would say that's intermediate to advanced when it comes to painting techniques. Hold on one second. I need water. Not used to talking this much. All right. So as we're talking, I've got this guy almost done with this area. And I'm really trying to keep that nose, like that really harsh separation. I want to keep that black in there. So it's been kind of really focusing on that. But yeah, here we go. He's starting to look dark and spooky. You guys think? And so far, we haven't touched it with one brush. It's all just been with spouncers. So you can get some kind of cool techniques like with this. And that's where, like, with this, it's like far away, it has this cool, like, look to it. But up close, it just looks like, to me, it looks like junk. Like, because I like really subtle blends and stuff. That's why dry brushing is one of my best friends. But when it comes to like this is kind of one of those pieces that you want to like set on a shelf and like see it from afar because it'll really show the technique, like the the gradations. But I also just kind of want him to be a little dark and creepy. Just kind of focus on some of these cheekbones, a little more on the lips, and then I think we're ready to move to our next step. Okay. Yeah, spouncers give them really great textures. Like it's one of those things that it's just unique. Like I like it to give it it just gives it a cool texture. All right. Now, I think let me see here. I think we are done with our spouncers. So, because I hit you can see like I hit some areas a little harder and some areas not so much. And at the top kind of got a cool look to it. So here, I am going to mute us really quickly because I want to dry this for the next step. Okay, there we go. So it's still just a little bit tacky, so we'll see how this next step really goes for us because I need to dry that a little bit more because we're going to dry brush and it's good to have your model pretty dry when you're on this step. So here, let me just dry it a little bit more. Okay, there we go. And I blew my book all the way. So I want to get some of this so I don't forget this one. There we go. So I got that logged for me. So usually when I'm painting, I like to use my logbook and then I'll just put all of my paints. And then when I'm fully done, then I go back in and write. I don't like the interruption of having to keep writing things. Like I want to paint. So just wanted to get my swatches. All right. So now this is what we're going to do. I'm going to grab, let's see. I think I'm going to use my army painters. So we're going to do some dry brushing. And if you're not familiar, this is my textured paint palette that I make. This is basically, it's just got textures for you to be able to draw off any kind of extra paint. Because when we're dry brushing, we don't want to have excess paint on our brush. Because the whole point of a dry brush is it needs to be dry. So what we're doing is we're going to get just a little bit of paint. So I'll go ahead and do it now. I'll show you. So I'm going to get a little bit of paint in here. Just, I'm not pressing. I'm just kind of rolling the bristles to get paint on it. And with a round brush, I want to make sure I get paint all the way around. So that's why I'm rolling it. And I look, and now I've got paint. Then I'm going to go back and forth over my textured paint palette, and I spin my brush as well. And that is get rid of all of that excess on the brush. So we just got a little bit of paint. And then I will always test it. Like you can test this on a paper towel. That's still just a little too much. Or you can test it on your skin. Like I personally don't care. But when you're doing it, you want to just basically see a little bit of that pigment coming off. Because if there's too much, then you're going to get these weird blobs and stuff. So I'm going to focus on some of these rougher areas and really just try to fake in some of that color and brighten some of the raised areas as well. So I'm just going to kind of go in there and so then I'm just going to keep adding some more. And when it comes to this, I'm going to use this for just a little bit. And we're going to just kind of go and roughen it up here or get this paint on there. And we're dealing in darker colors, so it's going to be a little harder for it to show up. But all I'm doing here, let me find a spot so I can show you. Like here, it didn't get very well, and I want some more. So I'm going to just keep hitting this and not pressing really hard on it. And you can see it's kind of filled that in a little bit. Like that's all I'm going for. And I can do a little bit of blending, like so I can blend in a little bit. This honestly is a step that you could skip if you like the rough look, but dry brushing is just one of those things that it takes a bit to get used to, of like the right amount in your brush, the right amount of pressure. But once you get it, I mean, your paints are going to go from good to great. Uh, Tanya, I made my own textured paint palette using pieces of failed prints and rocks and stuff. That's awesome. Yeah, you can do that. I've even seen people like 3D print just like a bunch of like ridges and stuff. You can do that. And even I've seen people like it's probably kind of what you've done is they'll like get like sand and stuff and they'll just glue it down with like epoxy. Use that. Like there's all kinds of stuff. Like you can make just about anything. Um, Practice on different shapes as I remove paint. Yeah, it take like I said, it does take practice. All right, Ed. Uh, so is the same color with the spouncer was the last step, just cleaning up areas that are rough. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing. So here I can even show you again. I'm just like randomly looking because I don't want this to be like crazy sharp. I like the look of it because especially on this next step. But I do want to get like hide some, not all, some of the. So like looking here, you can see how it's like I just missed. And I want to get that, so I'm going to get some of this off. There we go. I'm just going to go in here to this spot right here and just try to get some of that paint on there. And that's it. Like I'm just really just going rough through here and looking at my model and seeing like where do I want to add more. Like this is kind of a really hard line, so I'm going to go in here and just kind of soften that up a little. Like because typically when you're dry brushing, you're going like this way with it. Like you're not going in the actual like grain. You're going perpendicular. So, but this is a little different because I'm not just like applying a ton of paint here. This is just a little bit here and there, and it's not going to cover up that dark color that we already have. So, like on these ridges right here, you want to get that a little brighter. But yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing. There we go. And I'll get in here a little more. There we go. I like that. I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and clean this. And typically all I do is I get it wet a little bit. And then I'm just going to kind of swirl this around on a paper towel. Try to get it all off. And just keep doing the same thing until I don't see any more color show up. And there we go. And you can typically, like I'll swirl it around on my hand when it's wet and see like I don't see any color anymore. And also here's something to know that when you're like cleaning your brushes, and it doesn't matter what brush it is, like if it's like makeup brush, dry brush, or just like a regular paint brush, when you are done cleaning them, you want to lay them down flat, like lay them down on something. Don't put them in like because like here. I've got a paint cup or a cup that I've got all my brushes in. When I'm done cleaning these, I do not just put it back in there because this is the reason. You want to lay it like that to let it dry. Because if I held it like this and went in there, and if there's any moisture in the barrel right here, it can actually get in there and start to rust the metal. And then that can give you like flakes of like crap that you just don't want in your bristles, and it can, like just doing that will extend the life of your brushes. So, just when you're cleaning your brushes, like, clean them however you want with water and scrub them out. Like, I've even got this little guy right here. It's like one of these auto feeders my wife got me that, like, when I'm done with the water, I can push the button and give me new water. But it's got, a little texture right here that I can swash in. But when it comes to my dry brushes specifically, I don't like to use that. Like, but when it comes to, like, a regular brush, I'll come in here and I'll just go back and forth and clean my brush, then, dry it off, and then I'll just lay it down so I can use it later. But it's a good thing to do it, get in the habit of just don't put it back in a cup. Like, after it's dry, you can throw it back in a cup, no problem, but it'll just extend the life of your brushes. Like, in me, like, my dry brushes are probably my most expensive brushes because a lot of the brushes that I use, I mean, they probably look familiar if you've gone to, like, Walmart or any craft store. I mean, I get the cheap brushes. I know when it comes to, like, really fine tipped brushes, like, I will get some nicer ones, but for the most part, a lot of my stuff, I just use, like Walmart brushes because the tips go out after a while, even with good brushes, so I'd rather just use the cheaper brushes and, save my wallet. But, okay, so we've got this guy, and he is looking awesome. Like, I'm really liking him. I like the different textures and grit because now, what I'm gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and this is the first time we're gonna use straight pumpkin, and this might be our last pass. And I'm going to apply some of this pumpkin right here. And this time, I'm gonna do something a little bit different just because I really don't want to screw this up. And I'm going to use another spouncer because if I had time and I wasn't rushed, I'd probably just wash this because I could just wash this out and it'd be perfectly fine to reuse. So I can use another one. And I'm going to get this in this pure pumpkin orange. And this is going to be one of our last passes. And I'm going to take it off, and I'm going to use a paper towel this time because I've got all this other paint right here on my texture paint palette, and I don't want to mix it. I want to keep the vibrance. I don't want to dull it. What do we got? Sarah, Artists Lofts from Amazon. I love. Ooh, I'll have to check them out. So is that paint supplies or like what do they have? I assume paint supplies. Okay, so now to this step, what I'm doing is I'm trying to get it off. It's almost like dry brush. Like, think about, like, I don't wanna have a ton on this, so I'm gonna, like, tap it and see if it's still got a little too much. I'm gonna push a little harder to get rid of it, and now I've got what I'm wanting. So, now I'm going to focus on some of these raised areas only, and I really wanna brighten it up like crazy. So, this is where that texture is really coming to play with sponge. Now I'm just barely I mean, I'm yeah, dropping it. I'm just barely touching it, like, as you see, like, I mean, hardly any pressure because I'm just wanting it to kinda give a little bit more on there. In some areas, I want to that I've been hitting it harder, I really want to give that texture on those specific areas. So, the key here to what I'm trying to accomplish is not about, like, what you typically think with, like, a dry brush. I'm trying to get this, like, speckled highlight look, and that's where, like, bouncers, I mean, they can do such a cool job on. Here we go. It's like a 20-piece brush set, all sizes, and even tools came with it. Oh, cool. I'll write that down, and I'm gonna have to check them out. What else? What are the sponge like brushes you are using? Okay. So at the beginning I said it, but that's not a big deal. Here we go. So these are Amazon as well. I can't tell you the name of them because I have no idea. But I literally get them by the box. Like, it's just a bunch of spouncers. So that it's called a spouncer. and that is what you wanna search for, but it's literally just a flat sponge on a stick. There's nothing fancy about it, and you could even if you don't wanna use this, like, you can get kitchen sponges and cut them or rip them and get different textures. I've even used natural sponges to get really cool textures, but this is where it really shines, like, okay, here, like, this is dry. So you can see how we've got all these really bright little now. And that's what I was really wanting, to just get a little bit of highlight to this guy, but not, like, overdo it. So, like, I can kinda tap it, and you can see it's like there is no pressure to this. I'm just barely touching it, but it's important to pull off all the paint just like when you're dry brushing. So if you're familiar with dry brushing, it makes complete sense probably because you're just pulling all of it off, and it's just the residue of the paint that's left. And then we're getting if it can focus for me, we're getting these speckles. It's kinda hard to see right when we first put it on, you can see it easily. But remember, where paint dries, it usually darkens. So I'm really just putting on some of this to get that texture. And my whole thing, like I've already said it, but I'll say it again with this project, I was wanting to try something different that I don't usually do. I don't usually paint something with sponges all the way. It's usually like some of my first steps, but we've been doing this guy the whole time with this. Like, so except for our little dry brushes that we were doing, this is really all just with sponges, which is such a cool thing. Like you can paint with anything. What you got, Sarah? Very cool. Thank you. I'm going to try to get some texture out of these. Yeah, and this is like one thing that I will say. I love these for rocks. And a cool thing that you can do is apply like, I've even taken, like, a paintbrush and applied paint to my sponge in different areas, and then when you're applying it, like, spin your brush, and then you're gonna get, like, these really cool textures. Like, I'm doing this for, like, if I'm painting something that's got, like, any kind of base that's, like, a really textured, like, concrete or even, uh, like, dirt and stuff like that, you can get some cool textures with it. But it's a cool little, tool to use. Like, I honestly I don't see too many people using these, but I love them. Like, they're fun to use. Okay. So I've pretty much gone over it, and you can see how he's really starting to brighten up in areas. So now I'm going to hit it again because I really want to, like, bring out some of these spots. 'Cause I don't want it to just be super dark everywhere. I do wanna bring out some of it. And this is one of those things that it is really good to just do it in stages, like because could I have gotten this right on the first pass? Yes. But when you're dealing with this, like, sometimes it's better to just do little bits at a time. Like, that way, you could just take it way too far and you might not like the results. But this, I'm really liking the results. And this is really just kind of an exercise, seeing how many layers we can get to be able to really build this up and get nice natural gradients. So get this. And the spouncers also, like the bigger ones, like you can see, it's not going in the cracks. That's what I love about it. Like you can really get all of these nice little details without, a brush. Like, because a brush, it could easily get it. Even doing dry brushing, like you can sometimes fill it in, but like the sponge just won't go in unless you go in at like an angle like this. But you can just keep hitting it until we get it as bright as we want. And this is also helping us with some of those gradients too. All right. Yeah, this is cool. But I do strongly recommend, like, if you haven't tried painting with sponges, try it. Like, you can get some cool effects. All right, so I would honestly say, unless you guys have any suggestions, I would say the pumpkin part of this model is done. We're ready to move on to the details, which is going to be fun. So here, let's clear this out of the way. Bring in our paint palette because now we're going to get into details. Okay, so like I said in the very beginning, has pieces and parts. So here's the finished model because they actually the artist gave you options of here is one that is all taken apart so we can paint everything separately or everything together. Now, you could easily do this all together, but it's just going to take a lot more work. So you would do the exact same thing we just did to get to this point because it would look the same except for everything would be covered up. Then you'd have to paint over all of these again because what I would do if it was me, I would probably paint everything orange, just like we did with this, ignoring everything, not caring about the teeth or eyes or bolts or anything. Because, like, even the top here, you can tell, like, I didn't care. Like, I got it all on that. I wasn't avoiding it. But what I would do is I would go in with black and paint every single thing that needs to be another color. Or I would go in with maybe gray eyes, maybe a gray to help you with the white so you're not having to paint white over top multiple times. But then I would just go through the processes we're about to go through with the rest of it. But having these with another coat, so you're not having to deal with the color of the orange. And the reason why I would do that is it gives you an even coat to work with. So when you're dealing with some of these things, like say this orange is coming through and you kind of see that through your paint and you would have to do multiple passes. So that's really the only reason I would be doing it. But man, look at the contrast between these two guys. Or actually, here, let's put the black one. I printed a black one too. So this one right here was printed in this same filament, like so on the same printer too, because I wanted to see it together and apart. That's a big difference. I think it looks kind of cool. So, all right, let's start with the stem. I'm going to pull all this out to just show you guys. So we've got the two bolts, we've got eyes, and for some unknown reason, I don't understand why the artist separated the eyes into pupils, irises, and then eyeball. Like, so this is going to be a little bit of a challenge to paint these tiny things, but I did test fit them and they worked. So then we've got our teeth and then the stem. Now, let me get a drink of water. All right. So what I think I'm going to do is I am going to start with, I don't want this to be right. So I think I'm going to start with this English ivy green and just paint this whole thing. And then while it's drying, we will move on to the next thing. Because we're going to multitask here because we're going to try to finish this thing. Start to finish in a couple hours here. So I'm going to just use one of these cheap little brushes I've got. I think this came in a pack of just brushes. And they actually, I've used them before, and they're actually really nice. And, oh, I forgot. Hold on, let me grab that. My water was across the room. Okay, so I've got a little pipette, and I only put maybe 3 or 4 drops of water in here, and I need to mix it up. And the water I'm using is distilled water. So if you watch any of my painting videos, I tell you how important it is to use distilled water. Do not use like regular tap water because there's impurities in tap water and it's never good to thin with that. And you always want to thin your paints. Like we didn't thin them for our spouser because we wanted that rough texture. But for this, I do not want any texture on this. So let's see if I've got a handle here I can fit this on. Oh, there we go. I'll put it on the end of the bouncer. It's got a little hole to put it in. All right, so I'm just going to give a very light coat of this and just kind of dabbing it, dispersing all of this paint as good as I can get it because I want a light coat also so it'll dry faster. And sometimes you might find you've got too much paint on your brush. I'm just starting with this. This is what was this again? I gotta add that to my thing. I lost my green. Oh, English ivy green. It's just a really dark green. And you could even take a green and add some black to it too. And you could also drop it. The only thing that stinks about these brushes is the bristles come off. So you gotta like look when you're painting. All right. So I'm just gonna set that right there. Get where my fingers took off the paint. All right, we're gonna leave that there. I'm gonna clean my brush. And this is a new little thing for me. My wife got me. It's like a auto waterer. It's kind of cool because it'll like automatically add more water. There we go. It'll just help you keep clean water. All right. So now dry this brush off. So do you sell your artwork or just a hobby? Honestly, it wouldn't a long time ago I used to do commission work and like sell my art, but then I like my YouTube started I started my YouTube and it started taking off. So then I decided, you know what, I'd rather just do YouTube. And I don't really sell my stuff anymore. Usually I paint all of my stuff and I give it to friends and stuff because I have so many painted projects because like you see me making painting videos, but like I also paint other stuff that I don't make videos on. So like I do painting all the time and it's a lot of stuff. But yeah, I don't really do commission work anymore. I just really keep it for myself. It's my own little hobby. All right, so now we've got the teeth. Or actually, you know what we're gonna move to? We're gonna move to the eyes because I know it's gonna take multiple coats of white because I wanna do some white in this. So all I'm gonna use for the white right now is just actually, yeah, I'm gonna use this white to start off with. Then I'm gonna switch over to a white that, uh, yes, mhm. I've got some golden paints that I might use. I know Mr. Pigment, he actually got me on Golden Paint brand. I don't know if you guys have ever used it, but the pigments are so amazing in them. Like, it only takes a couple layers. Like, I've got this, like these are actually high flow yeah, high flow paints, and you can use them for airbrush. They're, like, really thin. But actually, Mr. Pigment got these for me as a gift, and I have loved them for airbrush, especially this yellow. You can see I've used it. Like, it only takes like a couple coats with your airbrush just because the paint is so good. Like, it's crazy how good the paint is. But we're gonna go ahead and just use this for right now. And mix this up. And there's another white paint that my buddy gave me, and this is called Pro Acryl, and this is a really nice paint. I've honestly thought about getting a full set of them, but they work really good. But they're a little chalky. Like if you guys know what I'm talking about when I say chalky, like when it dries, it's got kind of like a weird little texture to it. It's not bad by any means, but it's different. Okay, let's see if I can actually hold this thing without getting paint entirely on my fingers. So we're just going to try to coat this thing because it being black, a smart person would have painted this in white filament. And you can see that mine's in black. So I'm going to just try to get a nice even coat to just start covering this and getting it literally all over me, as I thought I would. I don't know if you guys are as messy as me. Like, I'm a very messy painter. I think it's part of the creative process. The best is when I'm dry brushing and I've got like stuff all over me. Like it looks like especially when you're using blue and purples, it looks like you've got like all these bruises on your hands. And people will look at you strange. I've been around people that didn't like know I painted, and then they see that and they're like, "Are you okay?" And my wife has to explain, "No, it's paint. He just forgot to wash it off." There we go. Little tiny things are a pain. If you're gonna actually print this out, you might be able to just, like, assemble it in your slicer and paint all of it at once. I was really worried about this. I'll hold this. There we go. That's a lot better. We'll just kinda hold it down. Ah, tricky. There we go. And I don't know if you guys have, like, what your workspaces are, but these this is silicone mat, like, it's just silicone, and it is such an amazing thing for like when you're painting because like I'm making a huge mess right now, and when I'm all done, I'll clean up my workspace and I'll just put a little bit of water on there and just wipe it away with a paper towel. Like as long as you're dealing with acrylics, like if you're dealing with oils or something like that, or different types of paints that are you need like and stuff to clean them up, this doesn't work too well. But they are really nice to have. Just because of the cleanup, I highly recommend. And if you're ever wanting to get one, just search for extra large silicone mat because I think these are meant for a kitchen. I don't know if any of you have one of these, but it's very nice. Okay, so we're gonna let that dry, and we're gonna move on to the teeth. So we're gonna be going kind of going in a circle here. Like we're gonna be painting things, letting them dry, and then moving on to the next one. And don't want to forget I didn't add my white, even though we won't see it on my log book there. So we know what we got. Okay, so clear that out. And we're going to go ahead and get these teeth. And I'm going to, so this is the thing with this. Like, I want this to kind of look, I don't want him having pearly whites, like at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start my base color with this golden glow. And it's kind of just like, almost like a mix between khaki and yellow. Like it's a darker khaki, I would say. And You could easily just get a khaki or a yellow too, or an orange, add some yellow, like, you can mix this up. Like, if you have a white and then maybe, like a brown, you can add just a few drops of brown, and that would get pretty much the same thing, like, or 1 drop of brown, actually. If you don't mix your paints, I highly recommend it because it's kinda fun to experiment. And if you're, like, interested in mixing paints and stuff, there is a channel, Mr. Pigment. I mentioned him a couple times in this stream already. He I've done a live stream with him. He changed channels, but his stuff is awesome. He's got one that on, skin, on how to, like, get skin tones just by mixing together. I mean, it is so awesome. I learn something from him every single time. He's an amazing resource to have. It's solid. All right, so I'm just going to go here and I'm going to just get a really rough coat. And I'm just using this big brush too. We're not really dealing with any fine details at the moment. So it's really about just getting the paint down. And the big key here is you just want to kind of get an even coverage. You don't want any of those blobs. And one thing I do is, like, I'll get some paint on my brush and then I will just start painting and going. I don't dip back in until of the brush. And that's how you it's the easiest way, honestly, to, like, reduce the amount of, like, blobs and stuff like that, because that's where it can really destroy your paint job when you see all of those dry blobs. And if you guys have any questions, please ask. I'm more than happy to answer anything. Yeah, there we go. In a perfect world, I would probably be airbrushing this, honestly, because it's easier to get coats of paint on these things. I would just hold it with tweezers. So let's see if I can actually. Let me just hold this with tweezers. There we go. And we'll get. It's harder to get a good grip on this. Hello, welcome. And there we go. Yeah, if you're just joining, we're in the middle of painting a spooky looking pumpkin. So here's what we've gotten so far. And this is the actual model, full model, but I've got pieces and parts, and we are going to assemble this. Are you painting a filament print? Yes, that's what this is. This is printed on my Bamboo P1S. That's what I printed it on. So you guys see the bottom there off the build plate. I didn't prime the bottom so you can see the straight filament. And here's another one that I printed on an Ender 3. But yeah, turned out good. This bolt just fell out. Luckily, it didn't fall in the paint. Yeah, it was a really nice print. Really nice and clean. And I'm just getting, like I said, a really nice and thin coat. So the first 2 or 3 coats are always the worst because it's just filament just keeps showing through, but we'll keep going on it. But going with this, like, bone, like, khaki kind of look is gonna help with the teeth because we'll do a little bit of highlighting on it, but we're not gonna do a ton because we want it to be keep that spooky feel. There we go. Didn't know you could paint filament. Oh, 100%, 100%. Like, I so what I did was, though, I actually primed all of these with a primer first, and you can use a rattle can spray primer or an airbrush primer, and there's also just paint on primers. And the other thing is you honestly don't even need to do that. Like some of these little tiny pieces, did not prime them because they're just so small. I knew they were gonna blow away, so I just left them in straight filament because you can see like this is the original that I printed, and this was the exact same as this, except for this was the broken apart version of it, and this one was the assembled version. And I just dropped that bolt in that paint. You gotta love it. I'm just gonna leave that there. So yeah, uh, you can absolutely paint filament, and I've got like a lot of painting tutorials on my channel too. Like, if you're interested. I've got some beginner series and stuff to teach you how to start painting 3D prints because it is my favorite thing to do. So, have you ever tried any other type of painting medium such as watercolor, markers, inks? What has worked? What has not? Um, okay, yes, that's a really good question. Here, I'll pop it up for everybody to see. Um, So, yes, I have tried a bunch of different, mediums when it comes to painting. I like acrylic the best first because that's what I'm using right now, obviously, just because it's easy to clean up, it's safe, like, 'cause I got it all over me, I don't have to worry about it, like, and it's easily accessible to people, and it's the cost is pretty good too, like, it's usually pretty affordable. I know some people say in certain areas it's harder for them to find, affordable kinds, but I know that just depends on the area. But, like, some of these paints, like, I get at Walmart or Hobby Lobby. Okay, so hold on one second, there we go. But what I have never tried is watercolor. That's really interesting. I've never thought about using watercolor. I do use paint markers. That's a different type of media. It's still acrylic technically, but it's a thin down version of acrylic. I do like using paint markers from time to time, especially to get certain techniques like line drawings and that kind of thing. Um, and what else? Enamel paints. I've used enamel paints. I don't really like them just because 'cause they're so messy. Same thing with oil paints. I've dabbled with some oil paints. I'm not a huge fan of them. I've got one buddy that paints with an oil paints a lot, but he does a lot of mini paintings, so he's not using a lot like I would be using. But I know there's a lot of people that will use those. Um, and what inks all the time. I use inks all the time. I love using inks. I usually use them for washes. Like, here we go. Uh, I usually make my own like ink wash, and you can also like get your like Citadel. Like I've got regular like washes as well, but like I just make this with like India ink and a matte medium, water, and that's really it. And mix this together, like, and you can use that, and that's used to get in cracks and details. Oh, and I like to throw my prints around while I'm painting them. But yeah, uh, I hope that answered your question. I've used a bunch of different things. Like, it's really comes down to personal preference. Like, honestly, the one that try to stay away from the most is oils and any kind of enamel paints because they're just messy. Like, you gotta have a respirator on like enamel paints sometimes, depending on what you're doing, and they just got some hazards to them, and I like to stay safe. Uh, so so yeah, that kinda answers that. Hope that helps. But I would recommend, honestly, messing with it yourself, like, try it. Like, some people, like, find this really like, they've really unique things to be able to paint with. Like, one thing that I've painted with is I can trying to see if I can grab it real quick. Let me see it. I think it's upstairs. is like I'll mix things together. Like I'll take like different things. Like I'll like spray glue, like watered down glue on a base, and then I will like sprinkle baking soda on it to like give it like a snowy texture. Like sometimes it's not even paint to be able to get some cool like effects. Like I've even taken silica sand and just regular sand, use that on my projects. I realize it's not like really a medium, but I guess how I use it is. These little teeth are a pain. Just trying to get a nice coat on these guys. What else do we got? We show how to seal. I tried to seal, and I can still kind of scratch it with my nails. Should I gloss first, then mat over? Okay, so here, do I have, uh, this is one of the throw that on there. This is one of the sealers that I use when I'm spraying because I've got a matte version and a gloss version. It does pretty good. Typically, I'll go 2 coats, no more, just 'cause I'm just trying to protect it. And this is when I'm completely done with everything. But you can do this, or hold on, it's in my spray booth. Let me go get it. I've got this as well. And I like this. This is a gloss top coat. It's for airbrush, but you can paint it on too. So, like, even if you see like a gloss that's for airbrush, it doesn't mean that it's only for airbrush. You can use it with a paintbrush, and I've used this for paintbrushes multiple times, or with a paintbrush multiple times, because you just pour a little bit in, and then you take it with your brush. Now, the one thing is when it comes to cleaning it, it gunks up brushes. I have found, but you can use this for an airbrush, or you can just paint it on, and I'll usually do a couple coats. When it comes to scratching it off with your nail, like, I've never honestly tried to scratch off the coating because it's like a protective barrier for you to, like, if they get dusty, you can take, like, a little duster and, like, clean them off, like, or, like, if it gets a little water on it, the paint's not gonna run. Like, that's the main purpose, is just to kind of protect your paint job. So, scratching it off, I've just honestly, I've just never done it. So maybe you can do it with these other ones that I've done. Um, and the gloss first, then matte over. I've heard of some people doing that. I've never done it. I usually stick only gloss or only matte. Like, I've never really done both. It'd be interesting to try out. I honestly would be curious to try that because it would make it matte again. It wouldn't be glossy. So, Kathy, I've been watching all your videos to learn how to use my bamboo printer. Because of you, I purchased a bamboo printer. Smiley. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I tell you what, like I've got a lot of printers and I do love my bamboo printers. They just print, like they do a really good job. And Bamboo Studio is one of my favorite slicers because it's so easy to use, especially for beginners, I feel. But I'm really glad to hear that. I hope you enjoy it. Ravenloft, thank you for all the videos you have made. I've watched almost all of them. Oh my goodness. How how do you make your gloss airbrush paint? So, okay, here we go. I typically, when it comes to, let me see if I can find it. I typically just use a gloss black paint. So, like, I use this quite often, and it's just a regular cheap hobby paint that it's just a glossy. You can use glossy, like, acrylic paints, thin them down just like you normally would, like, any other paint, and then spray it, and then you'd be good. Or you could use, like, over top of it, like I was just talking about, a top coat. So, like, I could spray it with a regular black, like, say, this black in my airbrush, and then I could do a top coat gloss, and then it would be really shiny, like, it would give that reflective look. So, like, there's a couple ways you can go about it. And one thing I have noticed, uh, where's it at? I've got I've noticed my game color paints, they usually show up a little glossy. Like, you're gonna find that some paints are a little glossier than others, and it's just how they make them. So really, it's just about, like, messing with different types of paints and experimenting because this one specifically is a little bit glossier than, like, regular paint, and I don't know why. It's the way it's made. So you might wanna just try a few different brands or just get yourself, like, a glossy, paint. What is the name of the gloss? Oh, if you're talking about this is an airbrush gloss, and this is US Art Supply, and you can kind of see it up there. It's got overspray because I set it in my spray booth. But this is already pre-thinned for airbrush, so you can just put it right in your airbrush and spray it. You can use a brush on this, but there's also here, I got all kinds of stuff. There's also this I use sometimes as well. I might have even if I can finish this tonight, I will get this. Um, but this is a gloss varnish, and this is pretty much the same thing, and this is meant for a brush only, and it's a little bit thicker. So I sometimes will put like a 1 drop of water in it and thin it out just a little bit, and this will give you a really good, uh, glossy effect as well. I like to use this on eyes. So if I'm painting a bust, I'll put this on the eyes to give it a little bit of a sheen, that realistic look. But this is from the Army Painter. Citadel also has a gloss. I don't have it, but there's like if you just look for like a gloss varnishes, you'll be able to find them. Hope that helps. Thank you. Yep, you're welcome. Now where was I? Oh, we're painting. Okay. Let's go ahead and we're going to try to paint this guy again. And this has been a little bit of a challenge because of how hard these things are to hold. Like they are really hard to hold. You know, this is sometimes the pain of when you thin your paints because it takes multiple coats. Uh, but you don't have any like any brush strokes. They don't show up. Now let's see. I'm going to try. We're going to use a little bit of this Pro Acryl that I have. Let me shake it up first. So these actually have like little glass beads in them, which I really like to be able to like shake your paints well. And it just comes with it inside it. All right, let's try a white that has a little higher pigment on it because I think that's already dry. And I'm not even going. These are already pretty thin, so I don't even have to thin it. That's like the nice thing I like about these specifically. I know it's hard to see. But yeah, there we go. It's really coating it now. I got good coverage on it. It's just trying to get that base first. There we go. Okay, what do we got? Question. Do you teach how to use the STL program on Inkscape? Uh, the STL program on Inkscape. I've used Inkscape a quite a few times. I'm not familiar with the STL program. You can like, I guess I'm sorry, I don't understand what that is unless I'm just not aware of it, and which is could be the case. Is it like a specific part of Inkscape? There we go. If you could clarify that for me. I'm a little Now I have used Inkscape to export out SVGs and then turn those into 3D files. I did a video on that a little while ago. It's probably been a year now. Um, I do my own artwork and would love to learn to transfer my artwork. Okay, okay. So yeah, um, I think if let me give me a second. I might be able to help you out here. I have got a video I did. Uh, there we go. Here. I show how to do it in that. I hope that link works for you. Yeah, SVG to STL. Like that video right there, I show how to do exactly what you're asking. I don't know if you've seen it or not. And there we go. Let me get one more coat on these eyeballs. We're almost there with these. Yeah, I hope that link helps, but I go through that whole process of how to take an SVG and an Inkscape. Like, because I don't use, honestly, I don't use Inkscape a ton. Just because I use Adobe Illustrator like a lot. So like that's kind of Inkscape's like the free version of it. So it's one of those things that like I usually use the program I'm really comfortable with. Um Michael, do you still use Cura mainly? I recently switched over to Orca and have been loving it, honestly. So it's funny you say that. Like I'm in all of the slicers a lot. And I've been in Orca for quite some time now, and I do really like it. It's because it's really a lot like Bamboo Studio. Like it feels like it's just like a direct ripoff of it almost. Um, it just doesn't have a lot of some of the cool features that I wish it had, but I like Orca, and I've even been working on some ideas to be able to make like a full tutorial series on Orca Slicer. I just trying to find the time because my tutorial series when it comes to the slicers take me a long time to like make because I try to put so much effort into them for everybody. But yeah, I really do like Orca Slicer, but I still use Cura. I have certain printers that like I like to use Cura for. Like for some of my enders, I have my longer printer, my 4K printer. I like Cura for that one because I just find it prints better. And even my Delta printer that I have, that I like that for Cura. So it's like it's really just it depends on what printer I'm using. But I have found for all of my newer enders, my old Ender 3, like my original Ender 3 that I have, I use Cura for, and I still print with it. But the new ones that I just got, like the V3s, Orca, like print slices the files so beautifully for it. Like it's a really solid program. Like I like the results I get. So I hope that answered the question. Multiple plate is honestly a game changer. Oh, yes, yes. That's one thing. If Cura would come out with that, it would change a lot because that's one of the biggest features in Bamboo Studio that I use constantly, and it's that multiple build plates. Because with bigger projects, it's just so nice to have. Okay. I think our eyes maybe will have one more coat, and I might just leave it like that so we can get closer to being finished on this guy. And then I can come back and do some touch-up work on him. Because I really want to get close to finishing, at least give us a final result. And here we go. Michael, what you got? Yeah, I watched all of your other videos on Cura, and I was like, no, me didn't do an Orca tutorial. So just trial and error. I'm sorry. You know what? Honestly, though, if you watch my bamboo series, so much of that applies to Orca Slicer. It's kind of crazy. That's why I said it feels like it's almost like a direct ripoff. But it's different just because it accommodates so many different printers, and it's a good slicer. But it is eerie of how similar it is to Bamboo Studio. So like I've had a few people say they watched my Bamboo Studio series and they were able to learn Orca because of how close it was. So it's worth looking at that at least. It'll help you because the interface and where things are at are all in the same spots. There's just not as many features in Orca that there is in Bamboo Studio, I feel. Like there's some like the assemblies and things like that. But the paint coloring, the paint tool and all of that, like if you have multicolor prints, like it's pretty much the same. All right. So I'm going to let these dry. We got eyes, we got teeth, and now this is 100% dry. And what we're going to do now is I'm going to clean my brush. Okay, yeah, it's a direct fork from Bamboo and Prusa. Yeah, it is open source. So it's not, yeah, all the stuff is like open source. So it's not like it's like they're stealing it. Like that's what the community's all about, is trying to like change things, make them a little better. Because like being able to bring those features to like Cura users, it does change it. Like I really like where Orca's going with it, with their stuff. Okay, so now I am going to take my favorite color is this Irish moss. And just in case you were wondering, Irish moss is my made color. Like this is my favorite. So I just like how it paints. I'm going to go super bright with this, and we're going to do a quick dry brush on the stem. And that's it. I just want to kind of leave it like that. And we're going to see how it turns out. It might look bad, but I think that these two tones are going to look really cool together, especially like blended with a dry brush. So, my brain's not working. Here we go. I need my textured paint palette for that. So, I'll just go ahead and grab it off of this. Just going to roll it in there. I'll roll it here. Then I'm going to take this off. Test it. We're good. All right. Yeah. Here we go. So just doing a quick dry brush on this guy, because I want those dark ridges of that dark green to show up. Because I think once we put this on the pumpkin, it's going to really look cool. All right. And I think even if I get like super bright spots, it's going to look good just because of how we decided to go with the pumpkin like itself, like with all those blotchy looks to it. And there we go. All right. There is that. Let's see it. Let's see it, because I'm getting antsy to see this thing finished. Here, I'm going to push it on. There we go. Oh, yeah, look at that. Heck yeah. Man, dry brushing is great. Yeah, Ed. It just brings out the details like magic. You are 100% correct. But like, I think those two together, I think it looks really good. So we're going to call that done. Now, let's see where we're at with these guys. This is dry. This is dry. I think we're going to need one more coat, unfortunately, because you can kind of see it coming through a little. If you guys have dealt with white, I mean, it takes forever sometimes. But this brush or this paint that we're using, I switched to the Pro Acryl. It does a really good job. What else? So for dry brushing, do you always want to just use lighter shades of the color, or can you use the same color and just lighten it? Oh, 100%. Absolutely. So like how I did earlier with just the pumpkin, I used, and you can kind of see it, I used two different browns and this really bright orange, and I just kept adding orange to it and lightening and lightening and lightening. We were using a spouncer to like the sponges to be able to kind of get those transitions. But I was just using like basic colors, like just this really bright pumpkin orange. Like it's super bright. And I just kept messing with it and adding a little, or adding 50% of this brown. And then I added like 25 and then just kept adding less and less until I was just using the orange. So you could do that. And when it comes to dry brushing, you can use all kinds of different techniques. Like when it comes to it, really. You don't have to use like the same color either. Like sometimes you can get some really cool effects just by like changing your color. Like if you've got like a blue and then you decide to switch to like a purple of the same tone and then do a dry brush, you can get some cool effects. Like it's really just about your color choices, honestly. Like it's just fun to experiment. What else? Nice. Just woke up in the middle of the night and wow, you're painting live. Nice. Oh, wow. Woke up in the middle of the night. You must be far. It's an evening or nighttime for me too. Dry brush always for the win. Such a great and easy magic trick. 100%, Sarah. 100%. Okay, so set that aside. We're going to get a little more of this white. We're so close. We just got the bolts, which are going to be really easy and like pretty much one pass. And then we just got to get these coats. Then we're going to like really get it. There we go. I think that's going to be fine because what I'm going to do to it. You know what? I'm going to try to, let's see how far everything blows away. I'm going to mute and use this hairdryer real quick to just blow cool air on it. Okay, there we go. Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for stopping by. 5:13 in the morning, Bulgaria. Oh, wow. Across the world. Well, hello from the United States and Ohio. Okay, so let's get a little more on this other one. And this pumpkin is going to be close to being done. I would love to get him done. I think next time I'm going to have to start the live stream a little earlier. Try not to keep everybody up late. There we go. Okay. And the teeth, I honestly think the teeth are good. I like the teeth. So what we're going to do now, I'm actually, these aren't even tacky, so we're good with that. Yeah, I'm from Ohio. Okay, so here we go. What I want to do is I'm going to take this. Where is it at? Mommy Rose. We're going to get a lighter, but not too light of a color. This is always the hardest part, trying to find a good middle tone here. And I think, yeah, here we go. This is it. This is called Bone White, okay? So I'm going to use just a little bit of this, and we're going to dry brush it on these teeth. And because I kind of like how some of the dark is showing through on this, and I'm going to just put a little bit here. I'm going to get my dry brush, which is nice and dry now, and there we go. Get that on there. And I'm just going to get rid of some of this on the textured paint palette. Test it out on me. Then we're going to just kind of highlight some of these teeths. I guess teeths. There we go. So now we've got it. Still dark. And this one is like more of a wetter dry brush, I guess, because I'm not really, I still have quite a bit showing up on this. And that's kind of what I was going for, because I think we might be using, I'd like to put a wash on this when I'm done with at least the teeth to get them all nasty looking. Finished school up in Cincy and then moved to Cleveland for work. Small world. Yes, it is a small world. So I've got some family in Cincinnati, and I used to live in Cleveland. Love Cleveland. Go Browns. So, all right. So now that I've done that, we've got this looking nice, and I'm probably not going to do my wash until I've put the teeth in. And honestly, let's just do that now. Let's put the teeth in. And what I'm going to do is I like to do like a brown type of wash when it comes to these kind of teeth. When you're dealing with like a bone white and stuff, I just like the way it looks. And yeah, yeah, here we go. A brown wash for the teeth. You got it. Winner. So I'm gonna use my Gorilla Glue Super Glue Gel, and I like this stuff because I can just put a little bit of it and it stays in place and doesn't run. And let's see if I can get these teeth to fit in, because I was having problems with them earlier, but I had to sand them down. And here we go. We'll just fit her in. There we go. There's our teeth. All right, same thing on the other one. And just put this. I don't put a lot. Like you can see, like 2 little drops, and that's it. Okay. And these should just fit right in. And there we go. There. Look at him. He's coming to life. Love it. Here, let's use... We're going to use this. This is Agrax Earthshade. And I don't use this stuff too often. But I really like to use it when it comes to this kind of stuff. So here, let me get... Let's get this brush. Then I can, it's just a nice pointed brush. And Citadel always scares the heck out of me because I don't want to spill an entire pot. It's like a special kind of torture. All right, and one thing I always do is like I'll put like a couple drops of water. Like you can see literally just that drop of water. And I will put my brush in it. And I'm mixing it over here. And now I've got my wash, on my brush. My brush is loaded. You can see it loaded. And then I just like to get some drops on it and then try to just start pushing it around. Like, you can see like how I'm just directing where I want the wash to go. Now, in the past, I used to just straight up like cover everything, but I've really liked, like, I followed some friends that do a lot of mini painting and stuff, and how they direct the washes. Like bigger stuff, I like to just kind of sometimes pour it on, but you can really direct this stuff around. So like the tops of the teeth, I want to get that little shade going. Then I can get just like another drop of water. And here's the thing that I like to do. Another drop of water. And then I'm going to water it down even more. Then draw a little bit off of there. So now it's kind of watered down even more to be able to blend it. So then I can kind of get that without getting those like weird lines. So you can see I can really kind of move it around. So there we go. And then I've got some of this too much up top, so I can just brush it. You can even get it on a paper towel, like, so then my brush will wick away the wash. So like I'm just wiping it off on a paper towel right here, like just swiping. Now I want to get a little more of this. There we go. So you can kind of see the differences here. I think we need just a little bit more. There we go. There. But definitely, I rarely ever use washes like just straight. I like to like water them down. Gorilla Glue is made in Ohio. I did not know that. I love Gorilla Glue. I use it. I use their epoxies. I use everything Gorilla Glue. Did the wash mix recipe when I was doing the Hulk? Do you think, here, I'll put this up. Do you think a black wash would look okay on the teeth? Did you mention what brand of wash is it that you used? Yes, here. I can close this up and show you. This is Citadel. Now, Citadel is a little pricey. Like, I think this is like $8, like a little pot. It's really nice. I do like Citadel washes. Like I have 3. I only use 3. So I've got this brown wash, that Agrax Earth Shade. I use this Flesh Shade, and it's good for skin sometimes. And then this Null Oil, which is just a black wash. And I really do like them. But when that ink wash recipe that I showed in that video, you can just swap black ink with brown ink. Like I have here, let me see. I've got like, I don't know where my brown ink is, but I can just show you, like, I've got blue inks, I've got red inks, like this is a black. Like, you can use different inks to make washes. Like, there is no problem with that whatsoever. What else? Me Too on the Hulk, but made a green wash and with paint, not ink. Yeah, you can do paint. Like washes, like you can just water down. Like if you wanted to do a green wash, you just water this down a lot, and you can add a little more medium in there, and it's not a problem. Like that's the thing. Like you don't have to buy all of these crazy things. Like have to get those specific brands. Like you don't have to get this. Like I would encourage you to like play with stuff, because like, yeah, I buy a lot of this stuff, but like I was showing you, like this is a fresh bottle. Like I still use this, like, and make my own washes. Like, even though I've bought my own other washes, like it's not, there's no right or wrong. And that's when it's like, what I genuinely love about this hobby is there is truly no right or wrong. Like you can mess with stuff and get all kinds of cool effects with just like DIY hobby stuff. Like I'm not a proponent of just using what one name brand thing. Like some of them will give you some cool effects. I won't deny that, but it's just I don't know. And there we go. While we're doing that, I did the tooth. So yeah, I think the washes really just brought that nastiness of his teeth. No medium for me, water, paint, and jet dry. Oh yeah, well you don't have to use medium at all, for sure. You'll get the same effect. I'm going for an aged skull look. Will a watered down brown look too dark on white? Just I would water it down a lot. Like at that point, you're with what you're wanting to go with, you're gonna go with more of like a glaze instead of a wash because a glaze is just like a really like super watered down like paint. So like it would have to be like this thick, like or this like color for me to be able to put that on straight white because you'll get it doesn't take a lot. You'll be using a lot more water than pigment. Hope that helps. Okay. I've got these eyes, and to keep with this creepy theme, what I'm going to do, so here we are so far. We're looking good. We're almost done. So just straight black paint. He's looking really good. I'm really happy with him. Okay, so let me set him aside. Now let's close this up so I don't spill it everywhere. Okay. Now, what we want, and this could be absolutely terrible. I'm not going to lie, but I am willing to take that risk and see if it turns out really cool. And that's part of what I love to do is risk it all and see if it's going to work. So I'm going to use this red, and I am also going to, hold on, got to get this wet. I forgot to clean my dry brush. Waiting for the finished product. Yeah, we're so close. We're so close. I'm trying. Here we go. I'm going to just use a regular makeup brush for this dry brush portion, and let's see what we can get. So I'm thinking of doing a really cool blend here, but it's going to be hard because we're going on white. I don't want any red on this brush essentially. So I'm pressing harder than I normally do for dry brush. Okay. So I'm thinking about making this bloodshot. Let's see how it looks. So I'm pressing a lot harder at my finger here. So like I'm essentially dry brushing my finger, and then the strokes are just kind of hitting the sides. Like there's more brush hitting my finger because like you can see it's turning red than anything right now. Because I want this like real subtle gradient of like dark red to light red to make this guy look uber creepy, like bloodshot eyes. And if I do it right, even some of the paint drips with like, it looks like veins. That's awesome. Okay. Just working my way around. Trying to feather myself all the way to the front of it. All right, let's see what this looks like. And you can see some of it. So that's why we always want to test it. So I got to push this just a little bit farther. So just a little more paint. Okay, here we go. Creepy eyes. There we go. That's more along the edges. I just didn't want to make it just straight white eyes. He's such a grungy looking thing. Like, he's just creepy. All right, there we go. It's just slightly, but I think it's going to make a big difference. Let's get a little more and start this other one. Then we just got the pupils and bolts. And the pupils are going to be super quick. So now that I'm on this one, I already know like how much pressure I can do and how far I got to go. So this one I don't need to experiment as much on. Yeah, he's got eyeballs. I guess it's hard to tell on the black one that I keep showing. Like, here you go. You can see his eyes. And that's what we're working on. Just want to get that bloodshot look. Here, and we'll see what these look like now. Oop, hard to get in there. So yeah, you can see the red around it now. A little subtle, but I think it makes all the difference. It's just so it's not all white. I think I could probably push this one just a little bit more. Ooh, rust on the bolts. I like that. I like that. Because I was going to do I was thinking about a dry brush with like a nickel or something. But we can, yeah. I love that idea. Oh, you're painting. Awesome. Well, we're painting a creepy pumpkin right now. Almost done with him. Okay. I think that's as far as I want to push those eyes. Because once you get too far, you can't come back without repainting. Okay. So. Now, when it comes to my makeup brushes, like my dry brushes, I was just dipping in there to get wet. But like I'll scrub on my makeup brushes because I don't care because they're cheap. I get them in a set. My favorite makeup brushes to use for dry brush are these Eco Tools, just because they're natural hair. I like natural hair versus synthetic hair with makeup brushes. I don't know about if you guys have preferences. Okay, now I've been saving this. So for the pupil rings, I'm going to use this like color shift green to like give it like a glow. I thought this would be kind of cool. So it's not going to take much. And I'm going to just kind of put it around here. So this is like, it's almost like a metallic green. Like, and I'll show you. Let me get some on there. You can kind of see the metallicness of it. And I'm putting a heavy coat on this. because I'm just going to dry it with the blow dryer. And then we'll do the bolts, and then we're ready to the final assemble. But yeah, I don't know. Have any of you ever used like color shift paints? I think they're really fun in certain situations, especially if you're doing like magic stuff. Because like I've got a few different kinds of this color shift stuff, and it's from Folk Art. It's really fun. Oh, you have the same green. Yeah. Oh, the eyes. Oh, I bet that looks so good. Like on Hulk. That's a really cool idea. Well, great minds think alike. I thought this would be cool on the eyes as well, just not Hulk. We just got our weird looking pumpkin. All right. I'm going to dry this. I'm going to mute us for just 1 second. Here we go. Oh, it was my idea. Like, did I do that on the original Hulk? God, it's been so long. I don't remember. If I did, then wow. Oh, he keeps flipping. There we go. All right, one more. Oh, did I lose it? Oh, no. I dropped the eye. Well, that's not good. I just dropped the other iris, and I have no idea where it's at. Well, we're going to keep moving on. Yay, live. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. I'm going to do this. All right, so I'm going to use this for the dry brush, and then what we're going to do is, since you said rust, we'll use this chocolate brown metallic on top of it. So I think that would be really cool. Here. Yeah, I don't know. I'm really sad I dropped that eyeball. We're so close to done, and I lost that. We'll see if I can find it. Okay. So let's get a little bit of this. And when it comes to my metallics and stuff, I always use different like metallic brushes. So like that are just meant for metallic. That way I do not like mix my regular brushes I use. So I'm just going to get this off. Then I'm just going to do some, to get that same look that we've been doing, just kind of tamping it. And get this rough look to it. And there we go. Okay. Not much to that. So first we'll get this, then we'll move on to the rust, because I love that idea. Make an eye pumpkin patch. That's funny. We'll see if I can. We'll look one more time for it. Should have printed multiples, but you know. Things happen. We're live. Okay. Yeah, I got multiple bolts, but not that. Here we go. All right, so now that I've got that, and now that this is still wet, what I'm going to do is let's add just a little bit of this. And I'm going to, oh, it's been a while since I've used it. I got to shake it for a second. There we go. There we go. Then I'm going to take this, and I'm just going to get a little bit on it. We'll see what we can do. And let's just tap this randomly so we can kind of see some rust. I think I would probably use a different paint, but on the spot, I think it'll work just fine. Rebar in real life. Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. Is only silver and gets scraped by something. Everyone only paints it silver. Guess a pet peeve of mine. Oh, yeah. Well, oh, I'm sorry. We're just trying it on the fly, but I think it works okay. But I would probably, if I was really doing this and I was planning this out, since this was just kind of on the fly thing, what I would probably do is I would get, it looks like that. I would get, there's some different like materials, like texture paints that's called rust that you can like apply, and it literally looks like rust. I really like that stuff. Like I used to have some. I don't know where it's at right now, right? I've grabbed it. But get some off there. There we go. Good enough. So I'm going to pause this and dry these real quick. Or not pause it, but mute it. Okay. There we go. Oh, I'm muted. Oh, I'm so sorry. I thought I unmuted it after the hairdryer. So, sorry about that, guys. So now I've got this press fitted in. So now we're ready to just glue this in here. So let's just get a small dot of glue. And then we're going to have just a one-eyed pumpkin, I think. I'll post a picture of him finished if I find that thing, or I'm going to have to reprint it. And there we go. We got an eyeball. I think I need to do a little bit of touch-up because of my finger messed him up. There we go. And I also think, just because I always like it to add a little extra here, I'm going to just take the very tip of my brush, give a little life to this guy. There we go. Ta-da! Okay, so you got to start all over. Oh, man. Oh, that would be terrible. Okay, so now I'm going to try to fit this thing in here. And while I'm doing that, let me get the glue. It's tiny. It rolled somewhere.
It's probably on your lap.
There we go. Well, this eyeball is very hard to get into place. There we go. There we go. Okay. Ta-da! That is even creepier with just one eye. All right. So the last thing we've got, because obviously I can't finish this one eye. If I hold it like this, it looks great. What do you guys think?
You stood up.
Oh. Hold on. I just bashed my head on my camera. Looking for that eye. Yeah, I don't know. My wife's in here trying to help me find it. Okay, so let me get my metallic brush and let's finish this up really quickly. And we'll use this one. Okay. So I'm going to use that same silver for some of this. But actually, let's use this black. So, and I'm just going to put one drop of paint. Mix that up. Okay. So here we go. All I'm going to do is I'm going to paint these little few staples here. Now I'm going to make this one, these plates I want to make black. Because I think it would look good. There we go. So I always like to I do one of two ways. I'll go on the edge first and then paint my way out, or I will paint my way into the edge and it's the very last thing. It's just, I don't know why. It's one of those like OCD things, I guess. Like I always got to do one or the other. Like I can't just like paint the whole thing as I go. And there we go. But I think he's turned out pretty good, especially for as fast as we've painted him. I figured it was going to be a little ambitious because there's a lot going on with him. And then we'll get this one. And the rest, I think, silver. Okay. There we go. I don't know about you guys, but every single time I'm doing edging, like I'm always holding my breath. Always makes me nervous to mess it up, when especially you're on the very last stages. It's always the last stages that are the most nerve-wracking. The color shift pops. Yeah, it does. Like the eye. Like it really does make it the eye, the one. I'm going to just keep holding my thumb over this. That way he doesn't look weird. It just looks like I'm holding it weird. Okay. Semantics, I guess. All right. Now let's get... Let's go ahead and now I'm going to take this. It's fine. My poor wife is crawling around the floor right now trying to help me find this. She's too good to me. She's like trying to help.
You lost it.
I just dropped it. It's a little slippery sucker. Don't forget the rust to match the bolts. Yeah, I'm going to do that on these, I think. It's just these little details. It's really what's going to make it. The edges are always the most challenging, like the little tiny things. Yep, it's gone. Well, thank you, wife. I appreciate you.
You're welcome.
She tried for us. That thing was so tiny.
I think it actually went underneath your desk.
There we go. That's looking good. Here, let's bring this up more. There we go. From when I bumped my head on my camera. Okay. Well, we're getting close to the end. I'm going to have to probably finish up the details. And then just post a picture of it for everybody. But we've got it minus the eye. I think I'm just going to have to print another one, which isn't a big deal. The great thing about 3D printing. Just make another. There we go.
Oh, that's true. I'm gonna check your pant cuff. No, not that.
And
Nope, but that was a good idea.
there we go. That looks good. All right. One more. Looks great with eye missing. Well, I'm glad. Well, thank you. He's had a rough life, is what my wife says. He was grown and then brought to life. There we go. Well, for doing this for how long have we been going? Almost 3 hours. And that was what I was wanting to make the cutoff. It could have been done. Well, minus these stitches. I think we're going to leave it at that. So I hope, well, if you guys want to stick around, I can keep at least painting these stitches. I might as well. We're so close. But wife already probably checked the obvious places. They're smart like that. That is a 100% fact. She even checked my pant cuff.
Yeah.
Oh, it was?
Yeah.
Oh, pant cuff. Oh, okay.
That's why
I didn't see that comment.
That was smart.
That was smart. I was like, what? It happens. It's live. You definitely know this is not pre-recorded because I would have cut that out and not make myself look like a dummy dropping an eyeball or an iris, I guess it was. If you guys like this, I can start doing more of them because I genuinely love just painting and I can keep talking forever. All right. Almost. Are you guys interested in like me doing more lives like this or anything else specific? Because like I think lives are pretty fun. I like talking with you guys. It's way better than just in comments, like being able to actively have a conversation back and forth. I'm always up for suggestions. Even models. Like this model here was suggested by somebody for me to paint in this live. I like doing different things. Every great man has a great wife. Yes, I have an amazing wife. She is amazingly supportive of me in my basement painting and 3D printing. She's a good one. All right. 3 more. 3 more. Yes, very much so. Love live. Excellent. Because I've been thinking about it. Like I know I've been talking with Mr. Pigment about he and I doing a paint education live about like safety and stuff like that, like things people don't know about paints. Because he's just full of knowledge. We're thinking about doing another thing like that, which would be fun conversation. Yeah, I like it. Okay, good. Yeah, I try to, like, I know I have a few people that really like to paint along. Because I know the last one I did, like, I think Denny, he got stuck at work, and I think he was wanting to paint tonight with me. Like, if you guys send me pictures, I'll share them too while we're painting along. Like, I'm all about showing other people's work, especially when we're all doing it together. I should see if I could get somebody else on, like literally 2 people painting alongside each other, seeing how we can do. Maybe have a contest, a live contest. That'd be cool. I don't know. I do enjoy them.
It's like your relaxation time.
It is my relaxation time. I'm just talking now. I don't usually talk when I'm painting. Isn't he a paint or a chemist for a paint company? No. You're talking about Mr. Pigment. He is a paint conservator, or so like he restores like classical paintings and stuff, and he's got a huge wealth of information, he's just got a lot of knowledge when it comes to paint chemistry because he creates his own paints and he knows how everything works with it. So like he's really good at recommendations for paint. If you're in the Discord, in my Discord, he's in there quite a bit, and he's always answering people's questions if they have them, and sometimes it's my questions he's answering because I'm just curious about things, because I just like to know things. All right, so if I hold this like that, this looks great. I could at least I'll at least put this eye in. How about I do that? Let's glue that in, and we're going to call it. There we go. Get Miniac to paint a large model with you. Oh, yeah, I've never actually talked to him because I know he's more on the mini side of things. He seems like a cool guy. But yeah, I've never talked to him. You know what? Here we go. Let's
It's gonna be somewhere really simple.
Here we go. Oh no, this one's. Oh. Or I can just do this. Hold on. I'll paint it. I don't care. We've already messed him up. Might as well. Here, we're going to do this. Good enough. I'll still paint the actual or 3D print a new iris, and I'll post it like on my Instagram, and I'll put it in the community on YouTube too, the tab, so people can see it. There we go. Actually, I think it kind of works of how like Frankenstein is. Get Miniac to paint a model with you. Okay, that was okay. That was it. He was live with him. Yeah, he changed his name. He used to be Corpse Starch, and now he is Mr. Pigment. He's changed that. He changed it to that. But yeah. All right. I think we're done, everybody. Oh, I'm glad you learned a lot from this live. Like, that's always the goal. Because I think at the very beginning I said this could turn out terrible or it could turn out awesome. And I think it's terribly awesome just because of the eye. But I think it turned out really good. Here, we'll get close on him. What do you guys think?
I actually kind of like the eye.
You like the eye?
Yeah, it gives him character.
I don't know. The OCD in me is like dying right now because of that eyeball. I'm like, I'm so close.
I think that's why I like it, because it's not perfect.
It's like we just put a complete puzzle together and we missed the last piece. It's like it is not. I think the rust was a cool idea. Oh, we didn't do that. We were gonna put some rust on some different areas. Here. I'm gonna do that on some of these. We're just gonna tap it. There. Looks good. Twilight Zone feel.
I like it.
Oh, that's a solid pun. I appreciate that. I like it. What else? He's a pirate pumpkin. I'd put a patch. You know what? Maybe I should just put a patch on him. Like, I think if I was going to do it like without the eye, I would have probably put in some putty and like actually made it look like a cavity instead of like the perfect circle. That could have worked out. Twilight Zone feel. But yeah. Learned a lot from the live with Mr. Pigment. Thanks for adding the rest of the stitches. Helps my OCD. You are welcome. I'm going to, here. I'll add it to the back too. I'm just kind of putting dots on it. You know, it's going to art school, like, you know, the teachers always said, the devil's in the details. And it's those little rust details. I'll tell you what. There we go. All right. So we're just a little over 3 hours. And we started with this to this. That eye is bothering me so bad. But yeah.
He's going on the mantle. I love him.
Well, the wife says he's going on the mantle. But he's not going on the mantle till I fix that eye. I gotta print that. That's bothering me. But yeah, I hope you guys like this. I really appreciate all of you sticking around, hanging out, talking. I've loved every second of it. It's been a lot of fun tonight. And if you guys like this, I'll definitely do some more lives. Like, because I like talking to you guys. It's always a lot of fun. And this is, I can't think of a better way to spend a Wednesday night. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and end this, and I wish you all a great evening, and I'll see you guys later. Have a good night.